Hello once more. We're back as Radio Voice of Oslo, and today we're gonna talk on some topic on mental health, which was actually requested by a number of people. So we thought it was very wise and very important to come and bring this discussion on board. Before I say anything, I'll just invite my guests, that is Riva and Jacinta. God River will introduce herself in a little while, but I want to say a little bit about the mental health and the fact that we are in Norway. We are doing a little bit on, we're using reference on the ministry's findings, which is Folke Health Institute. And the finding is just an amazing one, where they talk about what is it like to have quality life and how that, so can lead to mental health, or can help someone not to go into the mental health issues that we're going to talk about today. But we have Riva is working with kids, and he'll bring us the experience she has with kids. I work with kids. Jacinta has also worked with kids, so we have a little bit of background on how it is like on the ground. Before we continue, Riva, you're a new face, and why I've invited you, actually, I watched a video you shared, and I thought, like, from the horse's mouth, we're gonna invite you on the platform to just give us a little bit on yes, and explain to us as someone who's gone through this process. Can you say a little bit about yourself, Riva? Welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I
Welcome.
appreciate that the interview I did it with the human aspect. I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
that it touched you. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, yes, my name is God River, but most people know me as River Flows, hence River Flows.
Yeah.
I am now a full-time student. I run my own business within dance choreography and teaching classes. And I also
Mm.
work part-time with youth, and also from the educational side as a fagbeiledder with private tuition. So that's
Mm.
what I do on a daily basis. And do you want me to talk about the interview I did with the human aspect as well?
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
just hit direct to the video and what led to it.
Well,
Thank you.
to
Yeah.
those of you who haven't watched the video, you can find it at humanaspect.com, and when you just search for my name, God River, you'll find it. So
Mm.
basically, they interviewed me about how I overcame depression and anxiety, how it
Mm.
affected my life, and the tools that I learned in how to
Mm.
cope with it, but also to move on with my life. So with me personally, I had a burnout roughly 2 years ago, a bit over 2 years ago now, and it really hit me hard.
Mm.
I quit school, I quit work. The only thing I basically did was dancing and working out for a minute,
Mm.
and it was an eye opener for me because I had been told many times, River, slow down, you're doing too much. But I've always been a very active person, and I've always done what I love. So everything I did, I loved it. There was nothing that I was forced to do anything, but it took a toll on my
Mm.
body and my mental health. And when I had that burnout, it really made me realize that I need to learn to take better care of my mental health. That's not
Mm.
something I was taught. It's not
Mm.
something really you are, in school or elsewhere. You're not really taught about taking care of your mental health. You're taught about taking care of your physical health. You're taught to be good in school. You're taught to behave. You're taught to be a good
Mm.
citizen, but you're not really taught how to handle your emotions and your feelings and all that.
Yeah.
So that's basically what the interview was about. And as you can see, I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still back
yeah.
in control, and I'm taking it one day at a time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was quite impressed with how you were so honest, and because I've known you for a couple of years right now, and I've
Yeah.
always seen you running back and forth. So actually, it's that video that was just an eye opener for me, and yeah, because it's really good to come and listen to yourself and follow what yourself or your body is saying for you to
Mm.
also have its peace. There is this statement that kids in Norway have it nice and they have it good. According to the article and according to like a lot of people would say kids in Norway have it well. What do you guys, or what can you say about this point? Maybe we start with Jessica and then River will contribute later.
Thank you, Beatrice. It's been a long holiday, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
back at the studio here. It's almost a month, and I know
Mm,
so many people must have been asking, where are these people? Holidays are obligatory in Norway, so you have to go for holidays. So I'm
mm,
here again, and what you have said, Beatrice,
mm,
from statistics, if one is reading about quality of life in Norway and kids,
mm,
you are right to say that most kids in Norway have it good, both in school and at home. Because according
mm,
to statistics here, you see that most children and adolescents in Norway, they thrive and have it good in areas of good quality life and
mm,
mental health. And once the statistics are there like that, and
mm,
then you can have, if for someone who is just reading, has a right to make that conclusion. But if you are actively on the field, you can
mm,
actually come with active feedback. Sometimes I say people who take part actively are those who are doing active research, and people who want to, for the purpose of statistics and survey, you are just
mm,
working from the outsider's perspective and collecting data and writing it down. So yes,
mm,
if we look at the government framework around children, everything has been laid down to take good care of children. You have even child welfare institutions that are always there running around to make sure that children have it good. You have the nurse that is taking care, supporting parents financially, and
mm,
you have a right to say that children have it good. But when you go to the field and work with the children, then you start
mm,
coming out with different, like counter reactions according to the survey. Yeah.
mm,
So I think it's a positive statement, but it is in the hands of those who work with these kids to
mm,
actually be able to attest to that. And people like Riva, I think you have a lot of experience working with kids, and I'm
mm.
sure you can give us a better insight into this one.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah.
you.
That was a really nice, how do you say, answer to that. Because as you say, people who do this research and statistics are not necessarily active on the field. They
Mm,
come in and they do the market research, their research. They collect their data and they go back on with their business to present it, to whomever
mm,
you're supposed to present it to. But when you're working directly with the kids, is when you get the chance to actually interact with them, because there's a difference between going to a kid and asking them, "Is this candy jar good?" Then
mm-hmm,
you're basically leading on and sort of telling the kid, "Yeah, this is good." But if you ask the
mm,
kid, "What do you think about this candy jar?" or um, "What do you think about your math teacher?"
mm,
It can be a bit of a different situation. But when you're with the kids, for example, like in my experience when I was working with the kids actively, the fact that I was with them every week, we were doing complete other activities, just having fun. The focus was just
mm,
on having fun and for them to have a place to go to. And that created a safe environment for them to be open to me about what they're really struggling with. But if you look at these
mm,
kids, you might think they're just happy, they have a home, they have clothes, they have food. They don't like
mm,
any of the necessities, but still they do experience things that maybe they're not so open about to their parents or to people who collect data. So it's I would say it depends on the research is not always as accurate and practicality, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I just want to add to that
Mm,
that there are many aspects of before you draw a conclusion that this is a good quality life or children
Mm,
have it good. There are so many aspects that come into play. We're talking about the social aspect, religious aspect, cultural aspects, uh,
mm,
infrastructure, health, education, and
mhm,
by the time we look at this survey, we will not really have known what aspects
mm,
this survey is portraying.
yeah.
Yeah, because we could have it good economically,
Mm,
but in the health sector, we don't have it good.
mm,
The
mm,
children don't have it good. We could have it good in the cultural section, but
mm,
religiously maybe we don't have it good. And so I want to say that for the purpose of statistics, for the purpose of a survey, for their
mm,
objectives, we can give credit for their objectives, why they carried on their survey. But
mhm,
we cannot rely on this survey and sit down to say
mm,
that all is good. Because even
mm,
according to the survey, we're talking of 9 out of 10 children attest that they have it very satisfied, both at school and at home. We have
mm,
8 out of 10 adults say that they are just so satisfied with their parents back at home. They are role models for them. They are a strong backbone for them. But
mm,
the 1%, the 2% that is lacking shows that we need to raise concern and ask what is not going on well. And that is
mm,
where we are. And that is why we are here to say that
mm,
we have to be holistic in what we do. So we have to put
mm,
all these aspects on the table and look at them. And River has actually put it well. If you
mm,
work with the kids, the kind of questions you ask will direct you to your goal. But we are here as normal people with no objective and no goals,
yeah.
and we are playing with the children, and they are just flowing out, and we are getting it. And that is a way of active research.
Yeah.
That's
yes.
just my contribution.
Mm. And yeah, and I think I like the fact that you guys have talked about the relativity of the data and the information that is coming out. Because relatively, if you ask some Norwegian kid how they are doing, generally economically, a good number of people are doing honestly very well. In your house you'll never lack food, you have a shelter on, about clothes, you understand. But then there are just other things, like when you talk about kids, for example, that are coming from broken or dysfunctional families, all separations or stuff like that. That is one of the areas that the mental health is really hitting.
Yeah.
And maybe also the kids of how can I say, asylum seekers, and those who have gone through, you
Refugee.
know refugees and stuff like that. However much they have everything they need, there's just a lot that is going around their head. They think about how it was like to cross the ocean, how they were almost at the verge of death, so some of those things put together, relatively everyone is having it well. But going into details, you'd find like people are really having it tough in one way or another. Yes. And the next question I'll just be asking is like, there's a difference between having, okay, this thing of quality life versus health, among youth and kids. We have talked about it, but I want you guys to just explain a little bit, or go a little bit deeper onto explaining. River, you'll start off for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
quality of life versus health. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think first of all, it depends on how you define um, good quality and bad quality. Because often when we speak in general, we as human beings will have different
Mm,
perspectives of different terms based on our experience, based on our current situations. As you mentioned, for example, an asylum, a kid who just, a refugee kid who went from living in a tent to
mm-hmm,
living in sharing one bed bedroom apartment with two brothers and a mom
Mm.
will think that that's sufficient. That's a, you know, it's better from where he or she came from. While as if you can have another kid who has, you know, the biggest bedroom you can imagine, PlayStations, everything, but still they would not say this is not good enough. So I
Mm.
think that's also one thing to have like in the back of our head. How do you define good quality and how do you define bad quality of life? And when it
Mm.
comes to the kids' health and their quality of life, I think it's
Mm.
very important. I think that different factors that play a role. And the first thing I would say that is very important is the foundation.
Yeah.
You know, the foundation in terms of at home, as you mentioned, for example, some kids may grow up in dysfunctional families, maybe not have parents who are attentive, because some kids might have parents who are never home. They are just
Definitely.
looked after by their babysitters. They don't even get to know their parents, even though they're the ones providing everything they have financially.
Mm.
So it can be so the foundation is very, very important when it comes to the quality of life, especially for kids,
Mm.
because when you look at um, research that has been done
Mm.
of people who have traumas, mostly it goes back to childhood traumas. Those are
Yeah.
the ones that can grow up and become adults and still have issues that didn't deal with because of the bad foundation they had as kids, and
Mm.
all that. All those experiences and everything, they play a role in the quality of life that they have as kids, but also as they grow older. And that's a very interesting factor when I thought about it when I was reading the article at the Focus Institute, where when they're questioning like, why is it that teenagers, why is it that mental health illness or disorder evolves a lot more in the teenage years? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where does it come from? You know, so I think that it all starts from the foundation as kids. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
not well taken care of, if it's not, if they're not, if they don't get that good and positive foundation, it will
Mm.
affect the rest of their life from teenagers to adults.
Thank you. Jacinta.
Thank you, River.
You're
Mm.
welcome.
Yeah, talking about the quality of life to the context of Norway,
Mm,
I think that what you have said is practically true.
mm,
If we take a holistic approach to look at the quality of life in Norway,
mm,
we will always have it good.
mm,
But
Mm-hmm.
at this point where we are talking, we
mm,
have to break it into fractions. Just
mm,
like Beatrice said,
mm,
uh, children from uh, separated homes,
mm,
children from who have a post childhood trauma and things like that. And then you start looking at the quality of life from that perspective.
mm,
Yeah.
Mm.
And you see, quality of life sometimes does not necessarily mean the money, the
mm,
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure that
mm,
you have. When you want to rate the quality of life, you're trying to look at the morale in a human being. You're trying to look at the health of that human being.
mm,
And for me, and for what I have read in other books, I think these are the two things that build a human being. And if we look at the children in Norway here, taking aside all other things and focusing on the morale and health, then
Mm-hmm.
we start realizing that most of the children have it good holistic, but most of them are behind when it comes to moral and health. I say
Mm.
this because at one moment there was something about a police report that was talking about children in Norway, youths nowadays are becoming more rude,
mm,
rude to adults
mm,
than in the past.
mm,
And
Mm.
if we want to look at quality of life versus that moral, and even if the police, which is the peace making force in the
Mm.
country, is coming out with such a writing, then you start seeing that quality of life is not what the survey is talking about. And then if we look at the number of mental health disorders that has been coming up and increasing within the last few years, you will equally agree with me that the quality of life is not what the survey holds here. And so I think that quality of life, we have to look at the moral, look at it in the social setting, and if everything is going good with the health and moral, and then we can say that we are living a very good 100% quality life, or 90%. Let me not say 100%, 90%. But if we look into the statistics today, mental health disorders is increasing among teens. Yes, their morality is also, there's a lot of moral decadence that we all are experiencing. There is a lot of youth crimes, teenage crimes being reported around. And with all these reports, we cannot just boil down to say that we have good quality life, we have it good. If we keep saying that, then we'll be losing a point. And before we open our eyes, our society will be not what we have been talking about. So yeah. And I equally, there's something that when you were talking came up to my mind. The statistics that was taken, I think it's about 2, 3 years behind. And so we cannot just stand on that to say that everything is good, because things are changing like pixely, as Norwegians say. So things are just changing. And so we are talking according to what we experienced the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So it cannot
Yeah,
be the
that's
same.
yeah. Things have really
And
actually
also,
changed. And
also,
okay.
can I just add just one last thing when it because it came to mind when Jesse was speaking as well, when it comes to the term of quality of life. I think also this society also has a role to play, because often when you meet people, it's very common to ask them, what do you do, where do you live, but
Yeah.
it's very rare like you meet somebody who asks you, are you happy?
Yeah, that's another thing.
It's always about the status, where you live, how much money you make, which school did you go to. So I think also in the societal aspect is also a misconception of what actually doesn't mean to have a good quality of life.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I just thought about when you mentioned about health and morals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I know we are going to the next question on the symptoms of mental health, but I will just highlight also a little bit of emphasis and elucidate on what mental health means. It's also, it can be referred to the cognitive behavior and emotional well-being. It's also about how people feel, they think, and how it is the absence also of mental disorder. Like the food, it should be like, how can I say, everything should be practically
Balance.
okay when it comes,
Yeah.
yes, balanced. That is when it comes to mental health and what we are talking about. So that is why also we are going into a little bit back and forth in the current situation, how it is like, and what really makes the definition accurate, as you guys have said. People can see you having a big house, driving a big car, you're a guzzler, having nice phones, and you have your MacBook and everything. You understand? But who asked you, are you happy? You can't be having everything, but then you're not stable mentally. So those are some of the things you are checking on, and how it's creeping into the kids' life, the youth life, the forgotten. You can't be having everything good, but not even anyone knows, like, you're crying. All these things you have. A child is not having it well, and especially in this current situation within 4, 5, 6 months, as Jesse says, things have just turned around. Everything that used to be okay, now people have moved into. Actually, I'm going to mention this. We are going to have a seminar on on this mental health and social media on the 25th of this month. I'll actually put it out here because that is exactly where the world is going into social media and how it's really affecting the mental health, both of the youth, the young, and even the old people, the
Yeah.
adults right now, they're being affected by that. So 25th, we are going to have the general secretary of the mental health in Norway. She's gonna be visiting us, but more information is coming as we go on. River, what are some of the signs of the mental health, or how
Yeah,
can someone notice that there is something that has changed?
thank you.
Mm,
As you mentioned, mental health is not necessarily a negative thing. It's
mm,
just the way we talk about physical health. You can be physically well, you can be physically bad, you can be mentally well, or you can be mentally suffering.
mm,
So when it comes to mental health disorder or mental health illness,
mm,
um, first I would like to mention that there are a variety of disorders, and
mm,
based on the article, because the article was focusing a lot on depression and anxiety, I would choose to just narrow down to those two to just keep it brief. When it comes to depression and anxiety, everybody reacts differently.
mm,
It's not easy to detect that somebody is
mm,
depressed. It's not easy to detect that somebody is anxious.
mhm,
Um, so if we start with depression, I can use myself as an example because I'm still in the youth generation as well. Um,
mm.
I'm a person that everybody loves to be around with. I'm always laughing. I'm always happy,
I
and
know.
it's very
Trying to come
very
around me too. I need that.
Yeah, she's always
uh,
full of energy. Yeah.
and it's genuine. Like that's just how I am. It's just who I am. So with a person who's always outgoing, for example, a child or a young youth who's always outgoing and very active, it can be hard to detect if they're depressed.
Mm,
But there are some signs you can look after. It can be sudden mood changes.
mm,
It can be changing in behavior. It can be changing in interests.
mm,
Because what depression does is like it kind of like, how do I express this? It's kind of like a sadness, really deep sadness that just prolongs and goes even deeper. Like you lose motivation for everything. Even like your biggest passion can
mm,
be like the hardest task to do. So it can be that it can be eating disorders. So it can come in a variety of forms. When it comes to anxiety and the symptoms of anxiety, um,
mm,
how do I explain it to first, if I start explaining it how it is and how it appears in itself. Anxiety
mm,
is how to we can define anxiety as it's kind of like your brain is always on alert. As
mm,
human beings, we are built in with an alert system. It's supposed to help us in crisis or in danger. So what
mm.
anxiety does is like you're constantly in an alert. What is a condition when there are no
Condition.
real dangers around
Mm,
you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It can be, for example, let's say you're at work one day and you forgot the password to your login. And what anxiety does is that it just takes your mind to the worst case scenario. What
Yeah.
is just like one simple thing, yeah? So, and in anxiety also comes anxiety attacks. A lot of people deal with anxiety also have anxiety attacks. An anxiety attack, it also is experienced differently, but the most common is that a person just starts hyperventilating and lose breath and just closes off.
mm,
So it's hard to do to explain the symptoms because as I mentioned before, everybody experiences it differently. But there are
yeah.
signs, as I mentioned, changing in behavior, mood, changing in mood,
Mm,
changing in interest. Maybe somebody just lose interest in what they like to do. Maybe a kid always loved to play football and suddenly they don't want to do anything. They don't want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
They can't
mm,
sleep. They can't focus. Um,
mm,
Maybe they're always agitated or
mm,
easily irritated. So there
mm.
are the symptoms that you can look for in kids as well as in youths.
Mm.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And I like the fact that you are explaining, because you see, that is why actually we are having you here, because
Mm.
you just explain like how, because it's so easy for you to now give it to someone else, you who have
Mm.
gone through it and now is outside it, it's
Mm.
kind of helping someone to just identify themselves and really like see, this is what probably I'm going through and I really need to come out of it. I like
Mm.
that. But now we are starting to round up because of time.
Mm.
Why is it like such feelings or depression, anxiety is so among youths and kids? So I'll start with Jacinta, if you have anything to comment on that. Mm.
Thank you again, Beatrice.
Yeah.
Like we have said, the youths, the teens,
Mm.
they are the very active population.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like Riva has said, anxiety, you are on the alert. And
Mm.
if you see this group, they are the most active group
Mm-hmm.
of people. So they are always on the alert of
Mm.
things. That is on the side of anxiety, either expecting things good or things bad. And at the
Mm.
same time, they are on the experimental age. So they are
Mm-hmm.
experimenting. And when they are carrying on these experiments, they don't know the results will be positive or negative. And
Mm.
so that is where you see you actually can read them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I, for one, who is a parent with
Mm.
many children,
Mm.
I have gone through a lot of these kind of situations where you sit in the house, the child is constantly like jumping up and looking through the window,
Mm.
jumping up like, and sometimes you're like, are
Mm.
you waiting for someone? Are you
Mm.
searching for someone? And
Mm.
they are not telling you like I'm searching for someone, I'm waiting, but it's because there is something they have experimented on
Mm.
and
Mm.
they are just waiting to get the least idea whether this thing
Mm.
has finally happened. So
Mm.
that
Mm.
is why you see anxiety is more within these teens and
Mm.
depression. And sometimes they go into this experiment thinking it's gonna give them some joy, and
Mm.
Mm.
then suddenly they realize, oh, this was the wrong thing I did, and then they just fall.
Mm.
That is why sometimes you see a very active child in the house becomes silent,
Mm.
is withdrawn,
Mm.
is not participating in things any longer.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
because he has been hit by a negative result of an action, of an
Yeah.
experiment. I like to call them experiment. So
Mm.
he
Mm.
didn't know the outcome.
Mm.
And it is like Riva said, the society, we the
Mm.
parents, the
Mm.
society at large,
Mm.
we
Mm.
have to focus. I come from a background where a child is not the
Mm.
responsibility of the father, mother, the immediate home, but
Mm.
it is the responsibility of the whole community.
Mm.
So they know this
Mhm.
child is a child who is always running to look for something. Once they see the child moving sluggishly, they start to ask questions. They start
Mm.
to come close to the home. Have you
Mm.
observed your child? And then it
Mm.
brings that awareness for you to know that something is happening. And then you
Mm.
monitor your child better, make the child close to you, and then you can
Mm.
easily solve that problem. Another reason why depression and anxiety comes with this group of children is because just before they get into puberty, their physiology, there's a lot of things changing
Mm.
in within them, both physically and inward. You can
Mm.
imagine a boy who starts to have a hoarse voice,
Mm.
and then maybe he, after 2 weeks of holidays, he comes back to school and he starts talking with a big voice, and the other classmates are like, huh? And then
Mm.
he's not even realizing that he's speaking like that. But
Mm.
like
Mm.
3, 4 times, huh? And
Mm.
then you ask him to talk again, he's only processing. What
Mm.
has suddenly happened to me that this exclamation sign come up?
Mm.
It's the same. You see a girl is start to develop breast,
Mm.
and maybe, and then it's like, I've been thinking that I can't get to this stage, Like,
Mm.
oh, I'm only 10. Oh, I'm just 10. I'm just 10. And then very soon it's like I'm 14, so I'm becoming a woman. And
Mm.
so they feel like something is wrong with their body. But
Imbalance. Yeah.
and then they start to, but that is also a stage of maturity. All these things,
Mm.
depression is not really like negative, or anxiety is not really like negative, but it's also a starting point to move to maturity or to collapse. So that is why we have to guard at this stage.
Mm.
So a lot of changes are taking place in these children, in these teens.
Mm.
That is why you have depression coming in, and in the, yeah, that's
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because of time, Riva, you'll be taking that question and also
Yeah.
this question of, does the current situation make or escalates, the
Mm.
depression and anxiety into the youths?
Mm.
So thank you.
Mm. Yeah, so I would just like to add to why depression and anxiety amongst teens and especially girls, as she mentioned, it can be the imbalance or the sudden change in life in their lives that causes other people around them to treat them in a certain way, um, to treat them a certain way, um, and thus start feeling bad about themselves, start looking down upon themselves, start losing motivation, start feeling um, like they don't belong, like they're not a part of society, and so on and so on. And also, when you look at especially girls, girls, we are always met with a higher standard in the society. We're supposed to, like, we're body shamed. We have to deal with social media comparisons. Where sometimes it's about cultural pressures. It can be community pressures. So there's so many things, and also depression and anxiety also because of that, it causes stress, and that also can cause depression and anxiety. So there are a lot of things, and sometimes it can be abuse. It can be abuse at work, it can be abuse at home, it can be abuse anywhere. So it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. So when it comes to the COVID-19 situation, I was looking at some numbers when it comes to, for example, just the crisis phones, and just to kind of like see how the mental health has evolved or grown. Mental health issues have grown in the last couple of months, and it's interesting. When I went to Shirikens SOS no telephone, where they stated that normally they would have 6 phone calls a day, but now during the corona times it's increased to 180. And these are the phone calls, like SOS isn't usually like suicide attempts or really really harsh situations among teens. So it's a really critical time, and it seems like corona has really affected a lot of people, and this is due to loneliness. Maybe some teens or kids are stuck at home with abusive parents, dysfunctional families. They're isolated from their friends. They're isolated from their activities. So it's a lot of factors that play in, a lot of negative factors that play in, that have really, I would say, skyrocketed the increase in mental health challenges in Norway amongst teens and kids.
Okay, thank you. You'll mix that, Jacinta, with the COVID-19, but also like there's something that I saw. It was, I don't know, either early this year or last year, a number of youths on Instagram, they had a secret account on Instagram, and they were doing body harm, that's like suicidal messages, blah, 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 everything circulated around, So I wanted to talk about suicide, attempted suicide, and self-harm among teens. What are the causes and why does it happen? So you mix it also with COVID-19, and then Riva, you'll be taking. We have only like two minutes, and then we close. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Beatrice, I think for that question, I want to first of all say that in Norway, children who are born in Norway, whether from immigrant background or etisk Norwegian, so they still suffer some problems, especially identity problem. So, but when they are born here, children are just like angels. They know that they are one and the same. But after a certain age, 10, 12, everything you say, they have to digest it and understand it. And sometimes they understand these things and they want to sit in their own quietness and imagine what is happening. And most often, when these situations occur, they look left, maybe they don't have a reason to blame their parents. They look right, they don't have a reason to blame themselves. And then they ask themselves, so what next? What next? It's about fate. Why am I like this way? Why am I born into this family? And all these thinking start going on in their heads, and the last resort is, I I can't take away myself, you know, and that is one of the reasons why you have these self-harm and suicidal attempts. And then you also have children who have the attitude of comparing themselves to others, which is very common in Norway, and it's allowed because they talk of stealing. But I don't know how the evaluation of stealing can place these children at the same level. So you see a child with a classmate, the father drops that child in school, picks up the child, goes for football training, equips the child with everything, and you find another child who basically has to take the T-Bahn with the father, go for the training, the same thing, and the routines repeat every day. And children who compare a lot, they fall into this trap. And so that is why I talk about morality, health, and quality of life. So it is only in backgrounds where they have that moral to teach the child that this kind of children can be able to make it. Without which they just say they are useless. Come from useless homes, so they should become useless. So that's how they term it, and these things happen like that. So
Thank
that's it.
Yeah, that's actually a good explanation of sometimes you try to just, weigh yourself with others. You measure what you can and what you cannot, what you have and you don't, and it makes you just slip into depression. It's so funny. Riva, you'll be doing that last part of it, and then you give us your final word from your heart as it was. Yes.
Yes. So as Jesse and also you mentioned how when it comes to comparisons and reaching the bottom low, and I think that's when someone would like to or would attempt suicide because they have lost hope. They don't feel like anybody loves them. They don't feel like they matter to anyone. So they see that as the last resort, and it's so sad because a kid or a teen can have a family of 10 people, always cook them dinner, always hug up on them, but they can still have these suicidal thoughts. So it's really, really, really sad, and it's an issue that really needs to be taken seriously in general. So in conclusion, I would say I would say that mental health is a very important aspect of life. It's mental health is actually more important than physical health, because if you're not well in your mind, you'll not be well in your body, because if you're mentally ill, it will also affect your physical health. You'll have more tension in your body, you'll have more pain here and there, you'll be sick more often and all that. So I think that everything from the community, like the family, the community where you live, teachers, the government, they should really make a greater effort in taking mental health more seriously. Perhaps teaching more about mental health in schools, implement that as subjects, so kids from already an early age can learn how to understand themselves better, learn how to understand their emotions, what they're feeling, what the feelings mean, and all that, how to express themselves. And I think as a community, we also have the responsibility of paying more attention, because the signs are there. And I think in most cases, when it comes to kids, it's because they feel that they're not heard. It doesn't, for kids, sometimes it's not even about having a long and deep conversation or telling them how much you love them. It's more about the feeling they get around you. You know, do they feel safe around you? Do they feel loved around you? So I think it starts from there. So I would say that let's us all just, you know, be more responsible and be more caring about the people around us, whether it's kids or teens or adults, and be more what is it called? Ha mer omtanke. Omtanke and
to care about others, something
care
like that,
about
and
others.
consider,
Yeah,
be
care about
considerate.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. 1 minute, not even 1 second, as we close, Jacinta, just your last word from your heart, because our time is up. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Riva, for actually carrying us through this program. You are a great resource to us. And I want to talk to all our listeners. We are all in this mental health, and it's not a fight for one person. Let us be observant, pay attention to what is going on in your home, among your friends. Look at your children's friends and be able to identify if there is something that is wrong, and don't focus on how well you are making money and thinking that life is good, but losing on the other side. So we have to be observant, watchful, so that our mental health and those of our kids shouldn't be destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. And as we close, to our viewers and listeners, I would repeat this, and I'm going to post it on this link. On 25th of this month, that is around 2 weeks' time, we're going to have a seminar on social media and mental health. And you know who is coming? The General Secretary, of the mental health. And she's gonna be in the house. It's gonna be lovely. We're trying to, because of the COVID-19, we're not gonna have a big number, but probably we'll be streaming it live. So that is something I can talk to our boss to just let it flow like this, because this is a topic that a lot of people have asked us to share and do something about. So right now, we are hitting on mental health. This is just an introduction. She is coming, and several other seminars coming on our way. Thank you, Riva, for sharing with us, for just pouring out your heart to us. Thank you, Jacinta, for doing the great research to put this thing together. Until next time, let's just say bye to our viewers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao,
Thank
ciao.
you.
See you.